Hey everybody. Oh my gosh, so I just got back from Sedona. I'm feeling so good, so revitalized by being among soul family. And it's just, yeah, I feel ready to come back into the flow here in Seattle and be in the full presence of what's needed now as this house gets remodeled and so much happens. But I just wanted to share this. This was prompted by a recent text conversation with a new friend that's an astrophysicist, and I'm just like, I wanted to share this like thought that it's been in me for a long time, but it's really around the Gaia Hypothesis, which is that this whole Earth is a conscious being, and that this Earth is also a cell within an even larger conscious being, and that the stars themselves are actually a giant neural network. And now, some of you might have seen the Planck Institute, the Max Planck Institute has released these images that are amazing. It's like the charting sort of how dark matter flows, and it looks a lot like a neural network. And Paul Stamets and other people have actually traced, mycelium as it relates to the brain and its neural pathways. And there's this investigation into, is all of this stuff conscious? Is it all a giant nervous system? And it's so cool. If you imagine all of the stars in the sky and the ones you can't see in 3D, like a 3D, lots and lots of points of light. And if you were to chart the light that's in these super highways between each star to every other star, and because thinking about this, right, because the stars have so much gravity, they're pulling and bending light toward them. What if, because all that light that's just sent out into space is inevitably going to be pulled into the gravitational well of another star. So, at least using the traditional sort of astrophysics model, and I know there's many different ways to look at this. Some people have many different theories of what the Earth actually is and all these things, but assuming that we are in this vast space, and if those of you who have played with Space Engine, where you can navigate the known universe and actually just like play it, scrub through time forward and back and see how it all coalesces and moves. I just think it's so cool to imagine that light is actually very akin to the neural wiring that connects two neurons in the brain, right? So like as light is emitted from this star here or this star there, that there's actually this super highway that connects them, and that the light is actually containing communication and information. And maybe light as it struck our planet over all these years was actually the intelligence, the divine intelligence that gave rise to organic life and to all of it. So maybe that in the same way that in our own bodies, right, there's these electrochemical things happening, a whole nervous system that is intelligently guiding the body to run all of its functions and to be a host or a housing to a large consciousness, which is you. You are the consciousness that is the sum of, in my belief, right, that's coming from another dimension, the spirit realm dimension, and into this physical embodiment, in which then, we're able to move our hands and dance and speak and think thoughts and see visions. And that's all happening both because of this other dimension peering through the physical dimension embodiment, but also because we can observe this intricate world of the cellular world, that somehow like the amount of intelligence inside you is just like vast. Because think about it, right, the billions of neurons that are communicating and just shimmering. For me to even say this to you right now, and for you to perceive this right now, is like it's trillions and trillions and trillions of communications per second. And so, and the bandwidth of that just has to be something beyond what science can even grapple with. So I think it's really fascinating to see the universe as a conscious being. And what's interesting is I am a conscious being made up of smaller conscious beings, all my cells, and those cells are cities within them, also made up of subcellular conscious beings, going all the way down to the atom in the subatomic world, being also conscious and maybe very advanced. Like, we're always looking out in space for intelligent life. There's so much intelligent life inside of the universe of ourselves. And I just think that's so freaking cool. And I just love this. I'm curious about who out there in astrophysics and other sciences is looking into this hypothesis of, essentially everything, that every being is a cell in a larger being, and it's fractal, goes up and down, and endlessly. So I think that's really cool, and I like to think of the stars as like neurons within something just huge, and maybe even that thing is one neuron in something even bigger and more grand. Another interesting pattern is that the sum of the parts, i.e., my singularity of self as a body, my thoughts are fairly simple. I'm speaking these words to you, right? But what happens in my body is way more complex. So the sum of what it takes for this embodiment to exist is actually much more complex than my lived experience, which is complex, but it's simpler in a way than the sum total of 100 to multiple hundreds of trillions of beings that I am made up of as a body. So that's an interesting pattern just to notice, right? That I am pretty simple compared to all of the beings that are living inside me to make me possible. So maybe the earth, if we're all cells within the earth, within Gaia, maybe that being, is actually having a somewhat like a different and complex but simple unified experience, while we have so many experiences within her or him, or I don't think you can ascribe a gender to this being in a meaningful way, because we just can't even fathom it any more than the cells in our body can fathom what it's like to be us. And then you take that to the next level. The suns, the stars, and what they are doing, and the kind of communication that exists between them, the light beams, these super highways of light, and then of course dark matter and all those ways of looking at it, superclusters that gather and coalesce. The other amazing thing is like coalescence being a pattern, gravity. Things are gravitated. Like the fact that we're connecting right now is because we have social gravity. We're gravitated towards each other. We want to be together. There's this desire for like connectedness, which gives rise to a swarm consciousness or a singularity consciousness. I wonder if during the Big Bang, if there was such a thing, if we even know what it was, because it really, on one hand, could have been a more non-dualistic thing, where the Big Bang was really more awareness wanting to embody itself in as many different dimensions and fashions as it could possibly do, and it just expanded. But on a physics level, right, they say at the beginning it was just hydrogen everywhere, a simple hydrogen atom, and then you get just tons and tons of these hydrogen atoms, and then they start to gravitate towards each other in the swirling. They start dancing, and then they start clustering and making asteroids, and then the asteroids start combining, becoming all the elements, and on the atomic level they want community. They come together and become this unified thing that travels the universe until one ion finds another ion, and it's like, hey, I love you. What is their experience when they connect and converge and coalesce into greater and greater aggregate units or beings? So there's this thing I see that is this pattern of coalescence in the universe. Things want to come together. I mean, some things repel, but it's almost like they're traveling and traveling, and then they just, for some reason, this constellation of beings forms a compound, and then compounds find other compounds, and suddenly, you get even something as simple as a rock is the product of like long, deep journeys of individual ions finding each other and connecting, and on the atomic level. And you can So I love this exploration. I'm gonna go to ecstatic dance in a second, but I just wanted to just blurt some of this out. This was actually the first TED talk, the TEDx talk that I gave way back when I was in Kamloops. But it was crazy. They at the last second, they told me, hey, we can't publish this. We can't, this goes against TED guidelines. They literally had this thing about referencing the Gaia Hypothesis, or the Earth as a conscious being, at that time, which was, gosh, like years ago. I mean, this was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They said that's considered religious content, and like not something you can, other than like kind of referencing it, to make the whole talk about the exploration of it actually would have gone against the guidelines. They have a special line that says no talking about Gaia Hypothesis, basically. So they said, can you change the topic? Which is why I wound up later talking about something totally different, which was like purpose-based festivals for the sake of like collaboratively coming up with solutions to the world's biggest issues as a festival environment. And that's what I wound up talking about. But this was the original talk, and this is just like scratching the surface. There's so much good epic research done, and I can't even imagine where it's going now, aided by things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, to start to see, to start to look at all the patterns of the universe, and what like analogs or comparisons can we draw to beings that exist, like as as neurons and cellular networks are to my body, what are planets and stars to a greater body, and looking mathematical logarithmically, and running regressions against the patterns that we witness and the way light travels in any form that could be a conduit of information as a larger life form. That exploration is exciting to me. Anyway, I just wanted to share this. I just really dig this realm of thought exploration. What do you think? What do you feel? I'm curious.